Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
100 days, and we've done things that nobody thought even possible. Like many generations before you, you're graduating at an exciting time for our nation, a period of both extraordinary change and incredible potential and what will be unbelievable growth. You're going to see that very soon. You're going to see it starting very, very soon. The whole world is talking about it.
The growth, it'll be big, then it'll become huge, then it's unbelievable, the growth. Yeah, so the commencement Trump at Bama. That was a lot of fun, huh? He certainly enjoyed his time on campus. So the great one is still in Israel. So I am here with you. Happy Friday. And there's actually a heck of a lot to be happy about. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. As always, two sides of stories, one side of facts. And so much has happened. It's been an incredible week, right? I mean, it's Trump's 100 days week. And the way it has ended is like the absolute perfect wrap up to everything that Trump has been laying out through the first 100 days and say, look, trust the process here. You know, people all freaked out. Liberation Day. And people are going, not feeling so liberated. Feeling a little bit uptight. Taking a look at my 401k. Not feeling so good. Right? Got nervous. People got spooked. Not good. By the way, and I will only momentarily digress with this point. It is another one of my sayings, two sides of stories, one side of facts. That is very much my thing. But I actually have a rule for money as well. My first rule of money, never let your money and emotions cross paths. There is one thing and one thing only that I was focused on following Liberation Day. And all the people that were freaking out and selling things and going, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. It came back to a couple points in this. And actually, this was with my audience, my message for about a week, every single day, just to kind of remind people with how the market was freaking out and people started freaking out after the tariff announcement. It's as simple as this. And by the way, it's absolutely as true right now today. But are you a believer in this country? Are you a believer in this country? First question. Simple. Do you believe that this country will be better off by the time that Donald Trump is done as president of the United States? Do you think this country is going to be better off? Yes or no? Those two things. And if the answer to those two questions is yes, everything is super easy to digest. Because it is so temporary. So temporary. You might even use the elitist word transitory. Transitory. Remember the left with their transitory is like Bidenflation when they were trying to, make it sound like it wasn't going to be much of anything. Like that whole first year, they would go, oh, we don't speak the language of the common people. We use words like transitory. And so they told us that whole year was going to be transitory. And then we're like, no, you guys are actually idiots. You economists that try to talk down to us. We know what the deal is, and this is not good. But the difference is this is transitory. This actually is. This is a temporary situation. the tariff situation, the reaction by the markets, people leading with their emotions. Never let your money and emotions cross paths. So just a rule for life here. Every bear market, meaning every time the stock market has declined by 20% or more, hasn't been a historically okay period to be invested. It hasn't been a historically decent time. It has been a historically great time, like the best times in American history to be investing when you enter a bear market. And that's just been historically because we're the United States of America and we kind of kick ass and things get better with time, even when we have really crappy leadership in between stages. And so here we are with Donald Trump. Are you kidding me? We hit a bear market. We got Donald Trump as president. Man, if you aren't all in at that point, where are you in life? Right? And so my point in mentioning all this, if you have not paid attention to what happened in the stock market today, oh, by the way, S&P 500 is higher than it was prior to the tariff announcements on Liberation Day. Higher. That's right. Market is up about 13% over this time a year ago. Oh, by the way, so you are up huge if you invested into the fear, and you're better off than you were before Liberation Day if you just kind of hung in there and did your thing. Just tuned out the noise and did not let your emotions get the best of you. Let the left live in fear. That's all they perpetuate anyway. You don't want to be that person. And I think that's just, and by the way, that wasn't all, because the S&P 500 also currently has, at the end of this week, its longest winning streak in over 20 years. You have to go back to November of 2004. That's right around the 2004 presidential election cycle to find the last time the S&P 500 was on as big of a winning streak as it is right now. So how is it that the sky is falling? How is it that the tariff's going to be so bad? Now, on Tuesday, I was talking about this with Trump's 100th day. You still had the left beginning this week. There's not going to be stuff on shelves next week. They're full of crap. We got more inventory in the United States right now than we had a year ago today. There'll be stuff in stores. Unless you have some idiot that's just really bad at inventory, like they didn't put stuff out. Don't play the fear game. Trust the process. Donald Trump is not going to fail you on the economy. Period. He will not. If ever there's a president, he's not going to fail you on the economy. It's that man. So here we are at the end of his 100-day week, and the S&P 500 is on a roll, doing things it hasn't done in over 20 years. Just awesome. Now, with that kind of like as the backdrop to where we are, and by the way, remember, stocks tend to be leading indicators as well. So you have companies, you keep hearing, it's going to be tariffs here and some of the tech companies, and they report in their earnings. How is the stock market performing the way it is if this is going to be just the end of the world, right? So what you've actually had is, as companies have had time to digest it, as they've been reporting their earnings and telling and updating investors what's going on, it's actually getting better and better and better, right? So just all these lessons learned. Don't live in fear. Don't listen to the left. Don't buy the lies. And by the way, oh my gosh, do not ever take financial advice or listen to anything pertaining to economics from your godless souls and slanderous news media, because they are combinations of absolutely clueless in economics. And then if somebody does have a clue, they're just dishonest. So kind of want to work through some things. Liberation Day, by way of calendar, was a month ago today, April 2nd. Here we are, May 2nd. What we are experiencing and what has already happened is Trump's great reset. Not that great reset, Trump's great reset. Okay, so when you take a look at what this whole thing has been about. Trump coming back in, his Liberation Day tariff announcement, going far further than he did his first time around. What goes on? You know, the idea of the Great Reset's been out there for a long time, right? I mean, the World Economic Forum, they've been working on it for years. And, you know, the cabal at the World Economic Forum in Davos, they actually put it on their website for the first time in 2020. And right during the middle of the pandemic, they're like, go, this is the time. We're going to use the pandemic to create the Great Reset. And in that story, they said that the Great Reset was necessary to achieve a better outcome. And they said the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate. Every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Okay, and so that's what they've been about, right? The big old Davos socialist Great Reset crowd. DEI and all. It's where it all was perpetuated because capitalism was the problem. The WEF's socialist push, it called for a focus on diversity and equitable outcomes, right? And so just as any good one world socialist agenda would do, for years, you had the WEF push DEI out through governments, but through corporate America. Through corporate America. It's a big, big part of it. And so as they were pushing their agenda, this is how you get things like tuck swimsuits in Target and people of indeterminate everything that are like the spokespeople for stuff, and Bud Light doing Dylan Mulvaney that's how we got there. But it's also how you got the crap that's going on in your schools, too. It all started with this big globalist World Economic Forum Davos kind of agenda, the big Great Reset. Well, in many ways, our society began its own reset last November with the election results, bringing Trump back to power. It meant one thing, doing things differently. And what President Trump's Liberation Day, in what really his first 100 days was all about in most ways, was his version of the Great Reset. Just not the kind the WEF was looking for. The inverse of their reset. But actually, to reset the way that we are going to be treated as Americans. To reset the way that trade is going to take place. The same way that he was taking a look at NATO and the UN his first time around, going, you guys are screwing us. You're all abusing us. Nobody pays their share. We pay for everybody. We protect everybody. Oh, by the way, take a look at our debt over here in this country. And then you screw us on trade 6 ways to Sunday. So let me tell you about the specifics of Trump's Great Reset coming together. Have that for you next. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
I talked about oligarchy. People were saying, well, what is Bernie talking about? Well, Donald Trump has made it very clear what we are talking about when we talk about oligarchy. Oligarchy is a president who, when he gets inaugurated, he doesn't hide it. Right behind him are the three wealthiest people in America, Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg.
How dare we have successful people? You know, it's always so much better when we have people that are losers, have never accomplished anything in life, that really get involved in running the finances of the country, don't you think? I mean, that works out there. It's an oligarchy. It's bad. And you still have Bernie Sanders, who has a summer camp. Remember, Bernie Sanders, he's got 3 houses, to burn. Good socialist that he is. He hasn't redistributed the other 2. And one of my favorite thing is that his so-called summer camp is somewhere here in my home state of Florida. I'm not exactly sure where, but I'm sure there are some homeless people, for example, that could certainly make use of his summer camp, since he's not often at his summer camp. Just a little food for thought for the burn. But nevertheless, as we take a look at Trump's Great Reset. So what he's been working on is the reset button on everything. All of the DEI crap, numerous executive orders he signed to make that stuff go away. But trade and all the world economic nonsense. So I shared yesterday, literally every country in the world was imposing tariffs on us. There are 195 countries in the world. 197 entities imposed tariffs on us. That's because 2 unaffiliated territories did too. Literally, we couldn't send a product outside of the United States without it being marked up with tariffs. Trade had been anything but fair. And we had very little in terms of tariffs out there. Like we ranked in terms of tariffs, even with Trump had on preceding Liberation Day, we ranked 150 out of 195 in terms of tariffs that have been imposed in the world. And so that's why it shouldn't have come as any kind of a surprise that Trump did what he did. I was just amazed that people are so surprised by his Liberation Day announcement, by all of the trade-related announcements. And he did have, on February 13th, his fair and reciprocal plan that he put out there. And when he released that, he said this. And by the way, his document's still up there on the White House website. He said, "Gone are the days of America being taken advantage of. This plan will put the American worker first, improve our competitiveness in every area of industry, reduce our trade deficit, bolster our economic and national security. The United States is one of the most open economies in the world, yet our trading partners keep their markets closed to our exports." That's important. It's not just that they do tariffs, it's that they make it so punitive, they basically just lock us out. This lack of reciprocity is unfair and contributes to our large and persistent annual trade deficit. So what we saw, right, is that the Liberation Day plan, he laid it out there, and then, quickly thereafter, capped for 90 days, pretty much everything at 10%, except for China, where we're still at 145, really putting the heat on China.
Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Well, I think everybody understands that at this point, we've got an authoritarian in office. He's essentially tearing apart the things that really matter to working families across the United States, and nobody's stopping him. And that Congress is under the control of his party. They're all paying homage to him at all times. No one's willing to break with him, even though they're taking away health care from millions of people across the United States and threatening Social Security.
Yeah, taking away health care from all these people and everything else. Oh, my gosh. So there's one of maybe the favorite billionaire this side of George Soros among Democrats, Governor Pritzker right there. And, you know, you take a look at Pritzker, and there is so much in such a short little window. The authoritarian, I do enjoy this. I do enjoy the authoritarian, yes. How dare he use executive authority? I mean, it's completely cool. Like when I, as a governor, say you don't get to go to work, you don't even get to operate your own business. You just put your mask on and sit there in the corner. Actually, why don't you put on a few more masks, just sit there in the corner and rot for, I don't know, year, 2 years in the name of a virus? No, but Trump is the authoritarian. Pritzker sucked that bad that I will literally order people to shut their businesses and to not to work. But the authoritarian here is Trump. I mean, these people can't get out of their own way. But there is so much there. And I'm going to get into some of the budget stuff here in the second hour, because the BBB, you down with the BBB? I think Mr. Producer's down with the BBB. Or is it the BBD or whatever Trump wants to call it now? Because he did call it the Big Beautiful Deal at one point. And then also early in the week, the Big Beautiful New Deal. So maybe it's going to be the BBND by the time it's done. But whatever it is, I'll be down with it, provided that it's what the framework is. Trump coming out with his budget proposal today. It's all a formal part of the process. But the big thing here, just to address the point made by the lunatic governor, is so you hear people being put out of healthcare. Okay. Do you believe that is, if somebody is of working age and is able to work, that they should work? I mean, because that ultimately is the question there. Yeah. So what you're talking about, and this is amazing. I got to pull up my research on this again, because you have of the people that are on Medicaid, a small percentage that are not able-bodied and that could work, that could get off of Medicaid, but don't. So if somebody chooses not to work, not ordered out of being able to work, like the good governor of Illinois, but actually could work, but they choose not to, and then they want to just sit there and suck on the government teat, should we allow them to do it? And is that taking health care away from them if we say, no, you've actually got to work? You've actually got to do something here. Put in the work requirement, by the way, for Medicaid used to be in there. It was taken away only in recent years. Try harder, fail better, all those different things. He's counting you being stupid. I just can't imagine being as miserable as those people actually are. Hey there, Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. You can catch me socially at Brian Mudd Radio. You can catch my show, The Brian Mudd Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And a couple programming notes. The great one, he's going to be back with you tomorrow night. He's back from Israel tomorrow. And Life, Liberty, and Levin. 8 p.m. Eastern, Fox. You got John Yo and Robert Greenway. They'll be joining him tomorrow. And then Sunday, another all-new Life, Liberty, Levin. Same channel, same time. You've got Adam Zone and Newt Gingrich. So you can catch a double dose of Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend. And then, of course, the great one back with you on Monday, right here on his particular radio show. All right, as we're diving into Trump's Great Reset. So the whole tariff thing for a moment. All right, so the Liberation Day tariffs settled out at 10% across the board and then ended up at 145% for China because Trump is really trying to do, as he might say, he's really trying to do a number there. He really is trying to meaningfully get to where we need to get to with China. And it's not going to be an easy thing to do. Now, in terms of the trade imbalance around the world, there are only 5 countries we have a trade surplus with. There are a lot where realistically, there's just not going to be much of a market for us to sell a lot of our things. And that creates a different environment. That's why all these deals are going to be different. Some people have said, well, why is it that if a country like, Vietnam came out right away and they said, we'll go to zero. Why doesn't the U.S. go to zero too? Well, because how much U.S. stuff is Vietnam going to buy versus, how much, clothing are we going to be bringing in, or all these various different things, right? And so that's where you have to start take a look at some of these tariffs are going to remain in place, probably at a level like 10% for some of these countries in perpetuity. That is part of his plan over the long run. But then again, tariffs have been the norm around the world. Remember the tariffs that Trump put in place, including on China the first time around. Everybody said, oh, my gosh, you're not going to be able to afford an appliance anymore for your home. And then there's like negligible impact. But to paint the point, because so many people, and I get it. I mean, who is a tariff expert in the grand scheme of things, from a macroeconomic standpoint? That's certainly not what you're worried about when you're going to work every day and looking to take care of your family. But to paint the picture, prior to Trump's Liberation Day announcements, how high do you think he would have had to have raised the average tariff charged to a country? Just if we averaged out all the tariffs to make them reciprocal, what would that look like? Do you have any idea? If Trump did an across-the-board tariff at a flat rate that equaled what the rest of the world on balance charges us, what would that number be? If you said 73%, you win. No joke. That is how absurd our trade situation has been. That's why we're locked out. Some products are ridiculous because a lot of times countries will say, hey, in this product category, it's 50%. In this product category, it's 3,000%. I mean, not really, but it'll be hundreds of percent because they just want to lock us out in these product categories. And so that is why so many American companies can't sell stuff around the world. We're locked out. And then it becomes the double whammy, because from a manufacturing standpoint, if we can't manufacture and sell stuff to the rest of the world because they charge all these ridiculous tariffs, so they can only sell to Americans effectively. Then you have all the coming in on the other side. We don't charge any tariffs, and so we get all this cheap crap from China wherever else. How is an American manufacturer supposed to compete in that world? That's how things got set up this way over many decades. But if we were, because so many people say, well, it's not really reciprocal. I mean, Trump, he was going to really make it much worse. Bull crap. The average tariff rate charged to the United States across all product categories is 73 freaking percent. And we're only at 10. So, I mean, imagine the freak out factor if he'd gone to 73. That would have been really reciprocal. So anyway, in the Great Reset, the United States is the second leading manufacturer in the world. We have the largest trade deficit in the world. Doesn't make any sense. We have the most leverage of anybody, yet we haven't used it. Doesn't make any sense. So then you take a look at the rest of this as well. So many of our American multinational companies getting in bed with the Davos crowd, the DEI crowd. So not only were our companies, running everything through China or wherever else, rather than making stuff here, but then they were also going to the global elites and getting with their Davos Great Reset agenda and pushing DEI policies through, right? So that was the other piece of all of this. It's intertwined in Trump's Great Reset to get rid of that nonsense too. So not only was it the case that, okay, some companies actually saw the election results last year, like, well, probably have had better ideas than keeping these DEI policies in place. It looks like a lot of Americans at this point, not necessarily with the homosexual alphabet people. So you had some that went ahead and canceled their homosexual alphabet agenda pretty quickly after Election Day. But others, through a series of executive orders that have been signed by Trump, and also in conjunction with these various different tariffs and the trade policies that are being negotiated. All in, you have had 60% at this point of corporate America that have rescinded DEI policies. 60%. Only 22% have DEI budgets that are on par or higher than they were this time a year ago. So the rolling back of DEI is on in a very big way. Now, when you take a look at so much of what's transpired here, between trade, between DEI, then you start taking a look at companies like, Apple, for example. They ended up getting involved with both. And so Apple, one of the companies that is still sticking with DEI, levered to China in a very big way. One of the companies that is most negatively impacted. They are moving all their production at this point for the iPhone over to India to try to avoid a lot of these things. And if you take a look at a lot of the companies and the way they have performed, it hasn't gone as well for them. And so what you are seeing is that there are going to be winners and losers as Trump's Great Reset continues to shake out. Those who prioritized in their businesses sustainability and their constituency, you, me, are going to be winners in this shift. The American sellouts, they're going to be left scrambling, along with their homosexual alphabet people and trying to figure out what to do. And so what's happened over this month is that a lot of that sorting out process has taken place. And so here we are right now at this moment where people have been able to figure out, hey, Trump's got a handle on this. Some of the really big news that started to emerge in this whole reset process was when China started to say uncle yesterday. And word is, even the Wall Street Journal is reporting at this point, they want to negotiate with the United States. And once you get that piece that falls into place, you're going to see all of this end up settling out in a very big way for you and me. Because not only are we going to end up having trade deals that are better than they've ever been in this country, but the net effect of this is going to be budget friendly. You know, we're trying to figure out how is it that we can pay for the BBB? How is it that we can accomplish Trump's agenda and get all the things that he needs to get done, like the deportations, our border policies, our tax cuts, and not just making the Trump tax cuts permanent from the first time around, but doing things like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, and maybe even more beyond that. This is part of how you get there. And you're going to very quickly, as Trump said in his speech at Bama last night, based on the speed with which these negotiations are going, see the whole Great Reset coming together in a very big way that will represent a huge win for you and me. And importantly, overall for the U.S. economy, which is what the markets are already starting to reflect. Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Brian Mudd, in for the great one. And by the way, I have breaking news, breaking Trump-related news. He now has the road to his house that is soon going to be named after him. There is, leading up to Mar-a-Lago, you have Southern Boulevard from West Palm Beach that runs into Palm Beach, and then ultimately up to South Ocean Boulevard to Mar-a-Lago. And that 4-mile stretch of road that you may often see when you have coverage of the president going to his home at Mar-a-Lago. They'll be lined with people and everything else. That is going to be named President Donald J. Trump Boulevard. That just passed in Florida state legislative session. It heads to Governor DeSantis' desk. He most certainly will sign that into law. All right. Wanted to get to Todd. Todd's at the Village. The Village is America's friendliest hometown. No, we never did find out if that really was Biden in that video from way back when he was running as Veep for Biden or for Obama the first time around. I got family in the Villages. Todd wanted to respond to something I mentioned about Medicaid. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm just kind of curious. You know, as someone who lives in Florida, how much money of our tax dollars did we waste on those signs? And furthermore, how much money did we waste on the sign saying Gulf of America? But further, I digress. My point is, I'm sitting here with my 81-year-old mother here in a lovely nursing facility here in the Villages. My dad is at home, who just got out of the Leesburg Hospital today. And someone who is, you know, doing double duty, taking care of both elderly parents. And
get to it real quickly here.
Well, the point is, I can't work. I don't get Medicaid. I don't get any medical benefits from the government. And you make it sound like those people who are on Medicaid simply aren't working because they're lazy. And I'd like to
actually, I know there are plenty of people that are lazy, and damn straight. If somebody is lazy and they're collecting Medicaid, I don't want them to. If somebody legitimately needs help and they're less cynical and sarcastic than you, we do a lot of help, especially in the state of Florida. In fact, the governor, the first lady, they help families just like yours with a program called Hope Florida. We have all kinds of amazing nonprofits in the state. So, yeah, we have a lot of avenues, and I believe in helping people. And I have a feeling that there are plenty of people that are willing to assist with a situation like yours. But as for Medicaid, only 44% of able-bodied adult Medicaid recipients are working full-time.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
We were racing for a slowdown in the jobs market. We did not get that. We got steady hiring. This jobs market is just relentless. Let me run you through the key numbers.
Yeah, let's do it.
177,000 jobs were added in the month of April. That easily beat forecasts for 135,000. So not even close there. The unemployment rate stayed low. It stayed at 4.2%. When we look at where the jobs are right now, we're seeing solid gains in a number of places.
Shut the front door. Hold on. But we the people of transitory inflation of 2021, Bidenflation, that told us transitory, and also told us, less than a month ago, and especially a month ago today, Liberation Day, April 2nd, that the sky was falling. I am shocking that during the month that everything was supposed to hit the fan because Trump. What? Job growth came in higher than expected? What? The job market is relentless? CNN's Matt Egan with that particular report. And in astonishment, in surprise. I mean, it almost is so bad that, like, if you grab your average economist and you go the other direction, you're going to be right more often than not. I mean, you can take, like, 3 economists out there, and they're worth the darn. Stephen Moore, by the way, is the one that I would take above all the others. Brian Mudd in for the great one, Mark Levin. He is still in Israel, back tomorrow. He'll be back tomorrow doing Life, Liberty, and Levin all weekend. Talking about, in the first hour, Trump's Great Reset. How really his first 100 days, when you kind of boil it down to brass tacks. We talked extensively about the border on Tuesday, covered that top to bottom. Obviously about fixing the border and dealing with the immigration crisis. But when it came to the economy, a great reset on all of it that would reset the cultural aspects that have been thrown into our society by corporate America, thrown in our face every time you watch an ad on TV, where you'd have all these homosexual alphabet people, just and DEI in it up everywhere. And it's going to be interesting to see when we get next month, June. They try to throw all that gay stuff in your face again. I bet it's toned down quite a bit this year. And then you take a look at the trade policy. And here we are ending this week, the week of Trump's 100 days, a month removed from the tariff policy, from the Liberation Day, with the S&P 500 trading higher than it was prior to those tariff announcements, with the S&P 500 on the best winning streak it has been on in over 20 years. And China now coming to basically begging the United States to work on a trade deal with them. Because earlier in the week, Trump said, we're working on trade deals with our 17 of the 18 largest trade partners. We're putting China to the side. We're putting China to the side. And they're like, please don't put us to the side. We want in on this too. So the trade deals are coming together in real time. But as we take a look at where we are, the first 100 days, without a doubt, the most productive of any president in modern history. Won't go back through all that stuff yet again. But it's actually the next 100 days that are going to define the Trump presidency. These are the most important days coming up. Now, you take a look at two very specific situations here. It's within these next 97 days that the effects of President Trump's executive agenda expressed through executive orders are largely going to be felt. And it's also within this window of time, we're going to really see the outcome of his legislative agenda and whether that's intact. So on Tuesday, as President Trump was set to board Air Force One, when he was en route to Michigan, he said, "We've done everything, or it's in the process of being done." I mean, when you look at the historic pace of President Trump's executive orders, with an average of over one per day, you see that's the case. When you put it in perspective, by the way, President Trump has already taken more executive action in the first 102 days of his second term than either of the two most recent two-term presidents, Obama and Bush. He's already been more active than either of them in their final 4 years in office. And this is all due to Trump having learned the lessons, all the lessons that he could have learned from his first term, having been through everything he was put through in his first term. And then having had, I mean, one of the biggest mistakes the Democrats are going to take a look at, they would have been better off if Trump had remained president. I mean, not only are they going to regret Biden for any number of reasons, but Democrats, by the time Trump is done doing what he's done here, are really going to wish that Trump had not had 4 years to just sit there and work on getting his agenda together. You know, they're like, oh, he's a dictator and oligarchy and all. No, the man had, he's been president. He knows how all the BS in the courts will play out, what the left will try to do to its agenda that way. He knows how feckless Congress often is and what he needs to do to position them to actually have success. He knows how to handle the trade situation on the world stage. And so he had 4 years to sit there and get all this together. And no time like the present to go ahead and get it all in there. And so he's not kidding when he said, we've either done it all or it's all in motion right now, because it actually is. He is packing 4 years worth of action into 4 months here. So we see the outcomes in these next 100 days, these now next 70, 97 days or so. And by the time it's done, you're going to have a pretty good idea about America truly being made great again. You're not going to have to wait 4 years. This is going to play out a lot more quickly than most people think. So, Trump immediately putting it all on the line lets it all happen at about the same time here. Now, in true terms of the impacts of tariffs, what will become of the ensuing trade deals are playing out, and they will play out in real time. A lot of people are like, well, what's going to happen with those 90 days once that he's getting this stuff done? You're going to have to worry about the whole 90-day pause thing and what's he going to do at that point. The deals are coming together. Other countries are far more stressed by this situation than we are. We, again, have leverage. It's also true in terms of the president's Supreme Court rulings and his use of executive authority, the abuse by federal judges to try to usurp his executive authority. Today, the Supreme Court already issued 9 rulings on emergency applications involving Trump's executive authority. Put that in perspective. They stepped in only 8 times during the 16 years of George W. Bush's presidency and Obama. So they've already been more active in Trump's first 4 months in terms of getting involved because of the record amount of lawsuits that have been filed at Trump. So the Supreme Court is on the game here. And May 15th, Supreme Court hears arguments over the president's challenge to birthright citizenship. But also within that case, which was consolidated from 3 in that one hearing, the Supremes, they're going to determine whether federal judges have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions against the president. That is huge. It's a landmark case. It's It's going to be decided before the end of the court's term in June. And it's over the course of those 97 days that you're going to have the greater than 220 existing legal challenges brought against the Trump administration that come to fruition. A lot of those probably decided with the Supreme Court's ruling. A lot of that stuff will probably just go away. But of course, you have so many of these lawsuits that just continue to come, like literally an average of 2 per day from the AACLU, the Anti-American Civil Liberties Union and others. And so it's during this next window of time that the judicial outlook for Trump's agenda also is largely going to be defined. And then it's also in that window of time that the single most important aspect of the Trump agenda will almost certainly be decided. And that is the fate of the BBB. The BBB is just about everything in the long run. And one of the most common questions that I get from people, like, okay, the executive orders are nice, but what happens when he's gone? That's right. And so getting policy passed, permanent policy in place, is critical. It is the single most important thing. The most important thing isn't the border. It's not combating illegal immigration specifically. The most important thing, not the trade deals that President Trump makes. The most important thing, also not on taxes, the economy generally, not national defense even, not education. And that's because the most important thing is actually all of those things. It's actually all of those things. And all of those things in the entirety of the Trump agenda are wrapped up in what will be the BBB. That is the legislation that will decide if Trump's agenda is ratified and if it's funded. And so the BBB is now the single most important thing, along with those other two very big considerations that it's talking about the onset here. And then you take a look at how is this looking? How is it looking? It is highly encouraging on all fronts. There is really good news on all fronts. This week, President Trump secured the Ukrainian deal that had originally been sought when Zelensky came to D.C. As part of the deal, all future U.S. aid to Ukraine will be repaid with minerals and natural resources the U.S. needs, and all tariff-free. That, to me, and like nobody's talking about this, by the way. I mean, the grand scheme of the kind of a big deal. Think about this. All we have ever done with Ukraine and insert country here, we just throw money at them. We just throw hundreds of billions of dollars at them, completely unaccountable. We have trillions of dollars of debt we continue to take on, but here, just hundreds of billions of dollars, no strings attached. Lord knows how much has gone into pockets of corrupt actors in and around Ukraine. Zelensky can't tell you where the money's gone. Now, any aid to the Ukraine is repaid with minerals and natural resources we need, and all tariff-free. That is massive, right? And that gives you a flavor of where these trade deals are going. I'll pick up there next. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
At the end of the day, we will defeat these people by winning elections. I mean, even if we win every court case We still have to figure out how to get that enforced. Even if the press does lots of exposés, you're dealing with an administration that has no shame. They don't care that they are, being seen as corrupt or cruel or whatever. That is kind of the brand.
There you go. It's kind of the brand. Remember the 80s commercials with the frying pan and this is your brain on drugs, the eggs? I'm a product of the 80s. That was effective. I've never been wired towards that kind of stuff, but that was effective. I don't think I'm going to travel down the path of drugs. Don't want my brain to end up some eggs in a frying pan. I kind of feel like we should wheel out to college campuses and maybe get Charlie Kirk on this. You wheel out Hillary footage and it's this is your life as a liberal. Any questions? You don't want to be this person. If you live your life being miserable and just living in the place that she lives and that they end up like that, right? Take a look at the burn. Take a look at Hillary. It doesn't age well. I've always had the hate doesn't age well, right? So, talking about the most important 100 days of the Trump presidency are the ones we're in right now, not actually the first 100 days, because that's when he put everything into motion. It's the current 100 days that we're now in where all of that is going to be decided. And so this is go time. And what are the outlooks at this point for the whole Trump agenda? Well, I mentioned that we see a lot of encouraging activity on all fronts. The Ukraine deal that was struck earlier this week is a phenomenal deal. And it also provides a roadmap for all other countries that want just freebies from the United States. You want something from us? Okay. What is it that you're going to give us to repay us? If it's not cash, what is it? If it's, in the case of Ukraine, you have minerals and natural resources we could use. We'll take those in return. So that is the roadmap. If you take a look at the finishing touches that are being put on the trade deal with India, the current structure of the trade deal with India will be to reduce or remove tariffs on U.S. imports that will be sufficient to effectively eliminate our $45 billion annual trade deficit with them. That's huge. That's huge. You know what that's like? That is like a $45 billion annualized tax cut to the United States that we had to do nothing to achieve other than Donald Trump just negotiating. Think about if he does nothing, it doesn't happen. The current structure right now eliminates our trade deficit with India and works like a $45 billion tax cut to you and me. That is part of the roadmap. That is where this is going. So as you hear, we also have ongoing negotiations with a total of 17 of our top 18 trade partners. It gives you an idea. And it also tells you what the roadmap is going to be. Then the word that I mentioned, China, is actively and at this point somewhat desperately reaching out to us because they are getting crushed by this. China's not only getting crushed because you don't have companies that are wanting to order stuff with the 145% tariff on Chinese crap right now, but also getting crushed because, yes, Apple, among other companies, moving all their production out of China. I mean, that's a permanent loss already for China. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot. all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
When you talk about the economy, this is Joe Biden's economy, and we inherited $2 trillion of debt, the highest peacetime deficits in American history, a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, which fundamentally means we're not making enough of our own stuff. And the president came in and he said, this is not always going to be easy. It would have been very easy for Donald Trump to do what administrations past have done, which is borrow a lot of money and continue fueling the national debt. He said, no, we need a reset.
Vice President J.D. Vance yesterday on the economy. But again, things are turning in a positive direction very quickly, along with the president's agenda. Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. You can catch me socially at Brian Mudd Radio. You can check out my podcast, The Brian Mudd Show, wherever you get your podcasts. It is always an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. The great one, he's going to be back with you tomorrow. He is back from Israel tomorrow. He will be doing Life, Liberty, and Levin, all new episodes this weekend. So you can tune in 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday show, John Yo and Robert Greenway, his guest. And on Sunday, Adam Sohn and Newt Gingrich. And when you take a look at Trump's agendas, I've been working through what is now the most important 100-day window of his administration, where the results from all the action that he put in place during the first 100 days will begin to come to fruition. What we're seeing is lots of early success. The returns are huge. Trade deal with Ukraine. That was a setter on how we're going to deal with foreign aid going forward. You want our money? You want our equipment? You're going to give us something of value in return. That's going to be a reciprocal trade. No more free lunches. We are done taking on all this debt to fund the problems of the rest of the world. You want to do trade deals with us? You're going to rework your tariffs in a way that we're going to reduce that trade deficit or figure out a new path forward if you can't afford to buy our things, which will be the case in some of the underdeveloped countries. We have the roadmap for how this is all coming together. And when you take a look at a combination of imposed tariffs by the United States, reduced tariffs by other countries, use to balance trade, what are we actually talking about here? At some point, it's like it's real money. The U.S. did just over $6 trillion in trade last year, ran a deficit of $1 trillion. Okay? It's a lot of reconfiguring to do. But what you see coming together equals the effect of $1 trillion turnaround. Okay? So talking about $1 trillion turnaround to the U.S. economy by the time he's done reworking these trade deals. That's what it's going to end up looking like. That is an unbelievable difference for our economy. And if you started to take a look at that in terms of budget deficits and where they've been, commonly close to $2 trillion recently, that takes us to the BBB. So it appears that in the battle between the House and Senate overspending, guess what? You got the House that's winning, and that is a particularly good thing. So Lindsey Graham, he had been running the process in the Senate. Originally, they were not looking through the reconciliation process to offer anywhere near the cost savings that the House was. The $1.5 to $2 trillion the House had been talking about seeking. This week, Lindsey Graham said that he is committed to finding the $1.5 to $2 trillion in savings. So you also had in the House, the DOGE caucus say that they are going to pick up the ball that Elon has gotten started. They're going to do the doging in this budget, which is the most important way to get it done because that's where all the funding happens as well. So as you have the disclosure happening for all the ways that money is being wasted, and by the way, the Office of Management and Budget Director came out today and said there is rampant waste everywhere in government, as Team DOGE has been uncovering things, showing how money has been wasted, and really, in many cases, looks like laundered. Layers upon layers. That's what Elon and his team were saying yesterday. Layers upon layers of theft and waste taking place. Rampant waste everywhere, according to OMB. Having all of that in front of Congress, so they don't just do baseline budgeting, which is what they've always done, and actually just doge these whole departments. If we have $1 trillion turnaround on trade annually going forward, or something even close to it, to our benefit, if you have $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion in savings coming from the BBB, led by getting people working again and things like Medicare, putting the work requirements back in, that'll get you $800 billion right there. Get you halfway there just on Medicaid. You put all these pieces together, and now you see how we can do all these things, how we can achieve the permanent Trump tax cuts, how we can fund the border agenda, how we can fund the massive deportations that'll be hugely expensive because of all the illegals that Team Biden allowed in. You see that how we're going to be able to do the expansion on the Trump tax cuts with overtime, no tax on tips. All that coming together, the numbers begin to work. This is why it all needed to happen within the first 100 days. It's why all of it needs to come together over the next 100 days. It's a master plan, and it's working. Let's go to Joseph in Montana. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Well, hello, Brian. How are you today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Quickly, doing well. Very quickly, a couple of things. The portion about all the people crying and complaining about, oh, they're going to take away my Medicaid, and about the people that should be working. I have in my family a prime example. I have a younger brother who is an absolute fantastic airbrush artist. He could be making $100,000 to $200,000 a year, but he'd rather complain about, oh, my back hurts, and sit on his butt and say they're going to take away my benefits, but he hasn't really worked a day in his life to earn any of them, if you know what I mean. Number one. So, yeah, he's full well capable. He can get on his Harley and he can do a 500-mile motorcycle ride, but he can't sit down for 3 hours and knock out a $500 airbrush painting, you know. But the other thing, the main thing that really sticks is I'm retired Navy, did 32 years.
Thank you.
We're getting screwed. Thank you for y'all backing us up. We veterans, young and old, are getting screwed by the VA. If your retirement, for example, is $2,200 a month, but your compensation from the VA is $1,100, they take that off of your retirement pay. You get two checks. You get one check from the VA. That's $1,100. It's tax free, and then you get from the Defense Finance Agency, you get your other $1,100 that is taxed. What happened to the days when you earned your retirement, you had something happen, whether you were wounded in combat or other injuries, whatever it may be, in the service connected, and you would get both. Now, they will take it away until you hit 50% disability rating. Then you get both until your disability rating is more than your retirement. Then they make you drop your retirement to take the disability.
Yeah,
I'm not greedy.
That's screwed up.
Yeah, we earned it. I mean, the men and women who had the guts to put on a uniform and go wherever we said. We signed a blank check that when we put our signature on there, the amount that was on that blank check included our lives, and we did it willingly. And these pinheads up in Washington, D.C., and I include Congress in that they just said they're hoping that us old guys like me, I'm a Vietnam era veteran, so I'm one of the older guys. They're hoping we all die off and shut up and go away. They don't want to help us, and that's the way a lot of us feel. Somebody needs to put They need to go through there and clean out the VA, because a whole ton of the people that work in the VA are not veterans.
You're right, and actually, one of my friends, I wish he was my congressman. He's not. He is a South Florida congressman, somebody who has sacrificed as much as anybody who's come out of a combat zone alive. Brian Mast, he lost both his legs and lost one of his fingers. He's a bomb technician and had a bad day. And he serves in Congress now. Man's a patriot, American hero. He has been working on fixing the very types of problems you're talking about with the VA. For example, local offices in his district. He has held his office hours there, seeing and listening to the vets come in, what needs to change, and through the transparencies and been able to enact isolated change at those offices, getting it done throughout the entire country is obviously what needs to get done now. I'll give Brian your message, and I know it will be well received because that absolutely needs to be part of what is being dealt with in the BBB. May God bless you and best wishes. And, the point that Joseph is making as well about his brother and how he could work, but he chooses not to. That is so often the other aspect of government assistance programs that go too far, that aren't a safety net, that become something that are reliance, that are unnecessary. It's an insidious thing to do because it takes the work ethic out of people. It boils things down and makes somebody less than they otherwise could be. They don't realize their potential. It's the least compassionate thing. And that's always been the big lie about the left anyway. They love giving away other people's money in the name of compassion. And they scream that it's the least compassionate thing if you ever try to take it away by saying, hey, you're actually able-bodied. You could go to work. How about you do some of that today? That is not compassionate. It's the least compassionate thing you could possibly do, to take purpose, to take work, to take the potential out of somebody, because they sit there and they are reduced to their lowest condition, just sucking on the government teat. And it's just one of so many things about making America great again that goes along with ending the abuse of our government programs, ending the abuse of your tax dollars. It actually will bring other people to their full potential. And all we're talking about in the case of something like Medicaid, for example, is putting the work requirements that used to be in back in. No, we can't do that. That's you're taking healthcare away from people. Now, what the left is doing is taking the future away from individuals that are lazy, but then actually the entire country by bankrupting it to continue down their fraudulent path. Again, that's why the BBB is the single most important thing of everything that's going on right now. But we are well on our way in this next 100 days. The plan coming together, making America great again. Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mudd Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
We stand here together, united, to say that the bill afraid of the power of labor and everyday workers across the country.
That literally hurt my ear. Oh, my gosh. Oh, AOC, I actually had to pull my headphones back. Oh, man. Yeah. Your Democrat Party leader, maybe, at this point. AOC, yeah. Billionaire class should be afraid of the power of labor. That's why record number of people that actually want to work are going, hey, you know what? I don't think I have a lot in common with people like AOC, actually. I think this Trump guy is onto something over here. Hey, so talking about the BBB, talking about DOGE and the cost savings, and of course Musk getting ready to take a step back, but he said he's going to remain in place in part of this. That basically DOGE is now the fabric, part of the fabric of the Trump administration. In fact, you had the a Trump administration official today say that they are attached at the hip. So DOGE is going nowhere. And here's what DOGE has actually saved you. $160 billion. You've heard that number probably at this point. And you have a lot of people who say, well, but that's such a disappointing number because he was throwing numbers out there like up to $2 trillion. Again, wait until we get the BBB done and see what Congress ends up doing here. But $160 billion. What does that actually mean? Well, they have made cuts across 22 federal government agencies. There are 18,796 eliminated initiatives. The net savings to you, $993.79. Every federal taxpayer, the net effect, $993.79. That's what DOGE has already saved you at this point. And how many people you say, you know what? You're going to save $1,000 on your taxes next year. How many people are going to say, no, I want USAID funding the transgender comic book hero in Ecuador or wherever it was? I mean, seriously. And so, yeah. Oh, by the way, Jesse Waters ended up doing a DOGE interview with Elon and Big Balls. And we learned the origin of Big Balls' name, by the way. It was a spoof on LinkedIn. So he said he made his LinkedIn profile Big Balls because everybody's so uptight on LinkedIn and takes themselves so seriously, and he didn't want to do it. And then you had Elon throw shade on LinkedIn as well. By the way, speaking of DOGE savings on LinkedIn, every federal government agency had a DEI deal with LinkedIn because, of course, they weren't interested in hiring the best and the brightest. They were interested in checking boxes. So LinkedIn apparently has this DEI program where you just go, here, we want somebody of indeterminate gender that looks like this. Give us one of them. And they would do things like that. So all that's been DOGE. Millions of dollars for federal government department DOGE from LinkedIn and their woke DEI program. Brian Mudd in for the Great One.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
And Vatican firefighters are installing the chimney that will signal to the world when a new pope is selected. Millions will be watching for white smoke above the Sistine Chapel once that conclave begins in 5 days.
All the world's cardinals are here right now. Most of them have come a couple days ago. And it's this time leading up to the conclave that is really crucial. Nearly every day they have these things called general congregations where they all meet. And in these we hear cardinals giving speeches. They all get together and discuss what qualities they want in the next pope. And you sort of start to see some favorites emerge.
ABC News on the report there, the chimney being installed, so you can watch the smoke that will begin underway next week. And as we head into the third hour, I want to talk about the passing of Pope Francis and what I believe is really an inflection point for society, not just this country, obviously, but all of Christianity and really the world at large. So before I dive in there, Brian Mudd in for Mark Levin. Speaking of religious matters, Mark has been in the Holy Land all week, but he will be back tomorrow and ready for Life, Liberty, Levin, all new episodes tomorrow night and Sunday. And, of course, the great one back with you all next week. And as we take a look at matters of faith here, I believe that this moment is an inflection point. I'm Catholic. I am passionate about my faith. Been doing better about that of late, actually. No fan of Pope Francis's leadership. Not a fan of that guy, actually. And when you take a look at a lot of the surveys out there, that makes my position an unusual one generally, because I know most Catholics are like, well, I mean, even if I didn't like what he said there, or maybe this policy, it's the Pope. I do understand that. I do. I'm not good enough that way, I guess. I can't get there. If I see something that's wrong, it sticks with me. And there is a lot that Pope Francis brought to the table that was wrong. Not in my opinion, but in God's opinion. I'll explain that. You know, when Pope Francis passed, I was kind of hit like with the mixed emotions. On one hand, you know, you do have a little bit of sadness, at least, that goes along with the passing of the leader of the faith. But on the other hand, I was like, hey, the era of Pope Francis's progressivism, done. The end of that progressive pope had come to a close. And that's also why the church, the faith, and in so many ways, I believe Christianity by extension, are now at an inflection point in our society. Because simply put, but there's no room for progressivism within Catholicism. There isn't. The very point of Catholicism is originalism. It's like the Constitution. If you're a constitutionalist, you're an originalist that way. Well, Catholicism is a form of originalism. So the role of the Pope to this day, and this is the single most instructive point, I believe, the role of the Pope to this day has not changed. It has not changed since St. Peter. You know, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, who was the first Pope, has not changed since St. Peter was Pope. It's the exact same mandate. What's changed? People that have decided to change things. You know, Christ's teachings, they're Christ's teachings. God's word, it's God's word. You know, since the onset of humanity, literally, you go back to Adam and Eve. What has man done? We decided to take liberties with God's law, right? It's like, hey, the apple over there is looking pretty good. Well, you know, yeah, but look, the snake over here is saying we should go for it. All right? I mean, there's always temptation. We always take liberties. We always get comfortable and then do the wrong things, right? And how does that work out? And you know, this happens all throughout time. We do things to fit our desires, to fill our curiosities. And never ends well. Never ends well. Never has. It's remarkable from a historical context, let alone a religious understanding of any of it. But just from a historical context, if you line up the religion to outcomes, it is remarkable how society after society thinks that it knows better than God, or just outright has chosen to ignore the word of God. They tend not to stay around. You know, one of the things that is really interesting in reading the Old Testament, along the way, you really are bound to think, what the heck were these people thinking? I mean, you don't have to know these specific stories in many instances to know that, boy, this is really not going to go well. Like, I mean, you get into, a particular story, you know where the ending is going before you even get there, like over and over again. So God provided for and protected his people time and again, seemingly each time after some period of time. And do what? And go off and do their own things. You ignore God's teachings in the process. Sometimes desire to worship false idols, other times motivated by greed. And the commonality all throughout human history is that when flawed people, as we all are left to our own devices, we do tend to do the wrong things. We stray from the teachings of God, even people of faith. And so nowhere along the way was there or has there been a time where God came back, for example, and said, hey, you know what? That whole 10 Commandments thing, boy, it's kind of rich, don't you? I mean, like, I was kind of kidding about that stuff. Yeah, it's been a long time, been a number of years now. So, we'll just go ahead and do away with some of those. What do you think? It hasn't happened. Hasn't actually happened. Or, you know what? I've been doing some thinking, and it's time for you to just kind of like make up your own rules and do whatever you think feels good to you. And that's effectively what progressivism is, right? Times change, societies change, technology changes. God's word, it doesn't. Yet the creeping crud of progressivism, just as it has infiltrated everything, all the DEI nonsense, the homosexual alphabet, from our schools all the way through religion, here we sit with this situation. Pope Francis advocated for leftist modern political constructs, including social justice, environmental justice, open borders, not building walls, which is quite comical given that arguably the most impressive in the world surround the Vatican. He also softened the church's stance on homosexuality, marriage, divorce, any number of things. God's word didn't change. Did not change. Just the previous pope's opinion of those things. And history suggests doesn't go well, does not go well when you start going your own way and doing your own things. Hence why I think this moment in time represents an inflection point for the Catholic Church, but also many ways for society. Because you start taking a look at all this stuff, and we have the nukes, and we've got AI, and in so many ways it can take over. And then, and now we're just going to go do our own thing, and we're going to go all progressive in faith, and just see where it takes us. Again, I mean, you can just read the Bible from a historical perspective and start to line things up if you head down that path. So many sects of Christianity, they've already gone woke, deciding to just kind of go off and do their own thing. And if the largest of them all just kind of falls prey to the progressivism of the day, look, probably not great. Probably not great. Not for the faith or, biblically speaking, for societies either. So it is incumbent upon the Catholic Church to do its part to hold the line and to spread God's word, not their own words in the place of. According to the Pew Research Center, among Catholics, Pope Francis had a 78% of favorability rating at the time of his passing. And so, I say, I understand my critical view of the situation, an outlier's opinion. But what I also think is interesting is just how well-intentioned, like, for example, many Catholics actually are. Because if you take a look at the other side of the spectrum, given a better choice, my opinion, my lifetime, Pope John Paul II, best pope, he also happens to be the most approved of. He has a 93% approval rating. So evidently, there are like 15% of Catholics that feel the way that I do, or at least told Pew that's how they felt. So what this shows, with only that 15-point difference between the favorability ratings for a conservative pope and a progressive pope, is the significant influence over Catholics that a pope has. So what comes next here? So we got the Papal conclave at the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. This starts next Wednesday. That's why they're installing the chimney today. for the smoke. They're going to get together starting Wednesday. And over 130 cardinals are going to participate. It's going to be the most ever that will be voting. You got 5 front runners that are rumored to have emerged, and who the heck knows. But by the way, because, the world we live in, you got betting lines and all this stuff, too. It seems wholly appropriate for the situation, right? So actually, the floated front runners are these. Luis Tagle of the Philippines. He's a 67-year-old progressive. You've got Pietro Parolin of Italy. He's a 70-year-old moderate. You've got Peter Turkson of Ghana, a 76-year-old progressive. You've got Peter Erdo of Hungary. He's a 72-year-old conservative. By the way, like if these are the choices you go with, he's my guy. I'm on Erdo. I don't actually have money on him. I don't know if it's necessarily the best idea here, but he would be my guy. And you've got Angelo Scola of Italy, who is an 82-year-old conservative. So what you've got here, 2 conservatives, 2 progressives, and a potential pope in the middle. So what comes next from the Vatican potentially matters more than most other things going on in the world right now, which is really saying something. So, I do pray that the next decision, no matter who the person ends up being, prioritizes, I don't know, like God's word over their own ideas on the way of the world. Because I think the fate of the faith, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe even the world could hang in the balance. Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
Borders are not racist. Speech is not violence. America is good. Terrorists are bad. Men can never become women. Police are not criminals, and criminals are not victims.
Oh, can I get an amen? All right, so that was Trump. Last night, the commencement, University of Alabama. Great stuff. Borders are not racist. Men can't become women. Borders are not racist. This is a true. You know what is, though? DEI is actually racist. The greatest thing, the greatest fraud about diversity, equity, and inclusion is that it is actually racist. It is actually bigotry in motion. And it's been a bad couple of weeks for DEI. I mentioned just a bit ago that DOGE found more DEI in the federal government, where federal government agencies, every last one of them, had DEI deals for millions of dollars a piece of your and my tax money going to LinkedIn so they could sit there and check boxes rather than hire the best people for the job. And not only are those contracts gone, LinkedIn's woke program should be gone, but the DEI policies for 60%, as we're rolling through earnings season for corporate America, 60% of corporate America has rolled back their DEI policies. But there's something else that the president has his eyes on, and that is within school as well. He signed, at this point, I believe it's 3 or 4 DEI-related executive orders. One that he has signed recently, reinstating common sense school discipline policies. One other thing that the administration ended up finding, this came from research out of the Department of Education. Linda McMahon doing a great job, as hopefully she does put herself out of business before this administration is done by ending the Department of Education. The stated purpose of the order, the federal government will no longer tolerate known risks to children's safety and well-being in the classroom that result from the application of school discipline based on discriminatory and unlawful equity ideology. So in the order, it explains that among other issues with DEI policies, they've made schools less safe. Schools are actually less safe because of DEI. Not just the bathroom situation, not just, sports situations that are less safe. No, but actually get this. According to a federal commission study on school safety, DEI policies led to schools ignoring or covering up rather than disciplining student misconduct in order to avoid any purported racial disparity in discipline numbers. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. So if we had something that should be disciplined, but they were a particular DEI category, well, we just don't count that one in the numbers. But over there's a white one, and he looks like he's a straight boy too, so that one's a problem. This is how woke and how rogue the whole situation has become. Brian Mudd, in for the great one.
Would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this next one.
She said yes. It's immediately yes. No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
There you go. You talk about a successful 100 days. So 3 black Trump voters, CNN's Van Jones, and the 1,000% still in for Trump. And that is what you've seen time and again, that people are still with him. And what we have seen, come together over this first 4 months of his presidency is something historic, but it's also something sustainable. One of the biggest things that the left from the beginning miscalculated about Donald Trump is that they thought they could influence, that they could break him. And the one thing that I've been curious about, and I think we're now defeating this too, they were always wrong about that, of course, because the media never made Trump, so media couldn't break Trump. And last election proved that no matter what the godless, soulless, and slanderous news media does, it doesn't matter to most of this country anymore. People are too smart for that. Certainly, as you take a look at the highest percentage, it's one of the most fascinating stats about Trump's win last November. He had the most diverse voter base of any president since 1960. You have to go back to JFK to find the last time that you had as diverse of a constituency as Trump had. It's a remarkable thing. And it shows just how much has changed as people have opened their eyes. The one thing I was curious about, would the left be able to scare people economically? The tariff thing is new. The tariff thing sounds like it could be a scary thing. And then you saw what happened in the stock market. And so everybody went all in. All the godless, soulless, and slanderous leftist economists went all in. All of the usual players in your news video went all in. All fear all the time. And what we see now, 30 days removed from Liberation Day, with the stock market having recovered its losses from all of that fear and all of that nonsense, S&P ended this week the best winning streak it's had in over 20 years. The labor market, the job market, coming in much better than expected today, all throughout the month of April, when the tariff stuff, the fear was at its greatest. What it shows, I believe, is that, they were wrong and they lied about that too. So even that piece isn't going to stick. And now you see that the left is left with essentially nothing here. Now, talking about DEI and what I uncovered in my local school district as we were working towards eliminating DEI policies in the school district. And just last week, ended up getting a vote to eliminate those DEI policies. But one of the things that I never imagined is the extent to which they'd work their way into the schools. And this is where it is really important for you to be mindful too. So if you take a look at how infiltrated it can get, literally not a single hire was being made for any position within the school district without DEI considerations in mind. Literally, there was not a vendor contract that was open for consideration without DEI considerations. And think about that for a moment, because when you're talking about a school and a vendor and bids for contracts and everything, what is the most important thing? Not only to be fiscally responsible, right, but to make sure you have the best vendors providing the best services for our kids. But no, they were checking boxes with that too. So it didn't matter if you had the best deal, the best product, the best service, whatever else. It mattered if you checked a particular box. These are things right there. So even where we would take a look and go, okay, well, the curriculum, that's where the biggest problem is. It's true. But it had infiltrated every single aspect of everything surrounding the schools, from literally the bus driver that kids would get on a school bus with, to the person that would end up, directing traffic if in these school days. I mean, every single aspect had been infiltrated by DEI. And as the Trump administration showed, not only is DEI racist and bigoted, but it led to lower school safety because, among other things, you have less qualified people because you're checking boxes rather than bringing in the best. But it also led to cover-ups of real issues and real crimes that were being committed on school campuses that were going underreported as well. And so these are the things you need to be mindful. You know, during COVID and coming out of it, people are real good in their school districts, taking a look at, what needed to be done to mind the store. A lot of that has settled down. And a lot of the DEI agenda has come into place since then. So these are the things that you need to keep your eyes open for. Trump is fighting for you at the federal level. He signed an order to end DEI in our schools. But what happened straight away? Oh, yeah, the legal battle begins. Because last Thursday, you had a lawsuit that was brought by the largest teachers union, the National Education Association, and again, the AACLU, your anti-American civil liberties union, and an Obama-appointed judge in New Hampshire that issued yet another nationwide stay of the president's executive order to end DEI policies in public schools or suffer the loss of federal funding. So we know that this is the tactic of the left. This is all part of what must be settled by the Supreme Court sooner than later. What's going to be taken up on May 15th when they take a look at whether these lower federal court Marxist judges can issue nationwide injunctions that affect all these different things. But the movement, you take a look at this movement, the DEI movement, to keep the policies in place. The most instructive thing about President Trump's executive order was that it cited a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And when I saw that, it really kind of brought it all back. We'll talk about DEI policies being bigoted. We'll talk about them being racist. But they quite literally are a violation of the Civil Rights Act. You think back to Dr. King. It's one of the great ironies, right? I mean, you love to have leftists that will cite Dr. King, but then they never actually want to execute his dream, right? His dream that one day, he'd live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. DEI is the literal antithesis of Dr. King's dream. You cannot support Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream and support DEI. It's inherently bigoted. It's inherently discriminatory. Runs counter to all this. But most of all, It runs counter to the Civil Rights Act. You cannot be a supporter of the Civil Rights Act and support DEI policies. And one of the things that's going to be really interesting as this thing gets litigated is bringing that argument to the light of day and in the court system. And as this one makes its way, I have a feeling that the NEA, I have a feeling that the Anti-American Civil Liberties Union is in for more than they think they may be, because I believe it'll be very easy to be able to prove in a court of law just how racist, just how bigoted DEI policies actually are, and that they are a direct violation of the Civil Rights Act. And then can you imagine, if you get that kind of ruling, what the implications are all throughout society? No longer would we have 60% of companies that would be putting an end to their DEI policies. It would be everything across the board, and the greatest repudiation of one of the most insidious things that has been brought about in many generations, probably culturally, since the incarnation of the Civil Rights Act. But here you have yet again the education establishment literally engaged in a legal fight to keep DEI in place, to keep bigoted and racist policies in place, to violate the Civil Rights Act. You literally have the teachers that are tasked with teaching the Civil Rights Act suing to try to continue to violate the Civil Rights Act. So you need to show them, you need to show their homosexual alphabet people their place. Because this is still the battle. What happens in the schools. You know, Trump, he's working to end the Department of Education. It's one of the greatest things that could possibly happen. But we still, no matter what comes of any of that, have to mind the store when it comes to what's going on in our own schools. When I opened my eyes just recently and saw the extent to which even people that would be serving food in the cafeteria were done through DEI agendas, let alone what was being taught in the classroom, it was an eye-opener. It still permeates so many aspects of our society. And again, the teachers themselves, the unions, they are fighting to keep these policies in place. So that is what we're up against as this all is going to end up playing out, which I think will end up being a rather entertaining thing in the end. Bye-bye, DEI. I think its time has come and gone. Brian Mudd in for the great one.
Mark Levin.
If you want to change the world, you have to have the courage to be an outsider. In other words, you have to take certain risks and do things a little bit differently. Otherwise, if that weren't the case, everybody would be successful. Doesn't work that way. Progress never comes from those satisfied with the failures of a broken system. It comes from those who want to fix the broken system.
Truer words have never been spoken, right? Yeah, but, you know, Musk is a big, bad billionaire. We don't want the successful people that have done positive things to change the world to get involved to fix our government. It's much better with the swamp creatures, the career swamp creatures, like the previous occupier of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. No, Trump, amazing. His commencement speech, University of Alabama last night was really good stuff for sure. Let's go to Joe. Joe in Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call, and I like the job you're doing filling in.
Appreciate
real quick, under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, definition of a religion, DEI woke qualifies as a religion.
And Joe, I think we just lost your connection, but actually, you're exactly right. You are on point, and so this is cited in the recent executive order He signed it last week. It was one that he signed last week on education and eliminating DEI policies in schools. And the order is, hey, if you're engaging in DEI policies, we're going to remove federal funds from your school. And he cited the Civil Rights Act, precisely what you're talking about there. This diversity, equity, and inclusion is quite literally a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And it had never been laid out so beautifully. Like intellectually, a lot of us had talked around these angles in these lines. But the Trump administration, the president himself, put pen to paper, actually laying out the case that you're speaking to just there. So good point and good on you. And this is one of the many things that's going overlooked, these days. He's been working so fast. We talked about the historic 100 days where he has signed 143 executive orders and in total has signed nearly 200 executive actions, nearly as many as he signed during his entire first term, more than happened in either of the most recent two-term presidents in their final 4 years. He has put together his entire agenda in this first 100 days that we just crossed over so that in this next 100 days, the whole thing can come together. But yeah, we talk about the big picture stuff on trade, on the economy, on the border, all numbers of different areas that are in the news most days. But there are so many other things that are foundationally important, like the education system, that, yeah, he signed an executive order, first steps towards eliminating the Department of Education, but also something like this that for the most part flew under the radar last week. That is potentially transformational when you get rid of DEI policies at the school level, but then also illustrate that DEI is an outright violation of the Civil Rights Act itself. So you can take a look at a company that is engaged in DEI policies, like Costco, which I like shopping at. You want to do DEI? Well, that kind of makes you a scumbag. Unless you are not a fan of are you against the Civil Rights Act? And so this is the thing, like the board of Costco. Do you guys oppose the Civil Rights Act? Because unless you oppose the Civil Rights Act, you need to do something about these DEI policies here, because you can't have one with the other. And so that is a legal battle flying under the radar that is going to end up potentially changing this country. Who knows? May end up changing the world. There's so much that's coming together in so many different ways. That's why, as Trump is talking about changing the world, he's doing it. He's not just making America great again at this point. He is in the process of changing the world. I'm Brian Mudd, in for the Great One.